Okay, sorry. Let's try that again. Raise your hand if you blog. Oh, good, because I had this moment of panic, like, what if nobody blogs? I'm going to have to change my whole speech. So of all of you who are blogging, keep your hands up. And I want to know how many of you have been at it for at least a year. Keep your hand up. Okay, 2 years. 3 years? 5 years? Okay, so of those of you who have been blogging for more than 5 years, how many years? You? In the blue shirt.
7 years.
7. 5? Wait, didn't you just 9?
I don't remember.
You don't remember? This is important. When did you start blogging?
Oh, 6, 7 years ago.
Okay, all right. So then we're going to say that 9 is the winner. And what is your name, sir?
Sam.
Sam. Okay, I'm going to write this down because it's going to be important later. Okay, and I'm terrible with names. You could, if you're not wearing a name tag that I can read from here, I'm no good. Okay, so all of you who are blogging, how often do you post something? How often do you post? Raise your hands if you post at least every 6 months. Yay! Okay, every 3 months. Keep them up. Okay, keep them up if it's at least once a month. Okay, every 2 weeks. Once a week. Once a day. Oh, wow. Okay. How many times a day?
Depends on what's going on. Usually only once, but sometimes 2 or 3.
All right, how about you, Sam? You're pretty prolific.
Once occasionally.
All right, well, I'm going to give this one to her. What's your name?
I'm Diana.
Diana. Okay. All right. Now, do you guys have a sense of the average word count of your posts? Anybody have a sense of word count? So maybe 200 words is like a paragraph or so, you know. 500 words is maybe a few paragraphs. 1,000 words is, you know, an essay. So who posts at least 200 words when you post? At least 500 words. At least 1,000 words. 2,000. Oh, darn, I lost everybody. Okay, so we're saying that 1,000 is kind of the tippy top. So, okay, so here we go again. So Sam, you're a contender. How and Diane, and you are? Diana, and you are? Karen. Okay, what do you think your average post is, word count wise?
Probably around 1,000.
Okay, Sam. Okay.
1,500.
Oh, okay,
We
1,500.
actually have a guideline, so that's.
Oh, yes. So you do know. Okay.
Yeah, 1,500.
1,500?
Readers.
All right. Okay. So now what I want you to do is to do a little bit of math. So all of you, some of you have just started blogging or you're thinking about blogging. Do a little bit of math and try and figure out either at your current rate or your goal, what you'd like to achieve. If you take the frequency of your blogging and how many words you do when you blog and how many years you've been doing it. For instance, if you blog 1,000 words once a week, there are 52 weeks in a year. And if you've been doing it for 2 years, that's 50, yeah, that much, yeah. So use your devices, because I'm math challenged. And just get a sense of, everybody come up with how many words you've produced so far that you know of. And if, and I'm not differentiating between, you know, if you're using heavily quoting other people or stuff like that. I just want to know, what's the word count you've got so far in your blog? And if that doesn't apply to you, then have fun with math and create a goal for yourself of how much you could create in a year, okay? I got into publishing so I wouldn't have to use math, and I need it every day. My math teacher was right. I do use it. Okay, so who has at least 30,000 words under your belt? Okay. Keep your hands up if it's at least, well, let me tell you why. 30,000 words is kind of the entry point. You don't have to keep your hands up while I yak. I'll make you put them up again. So 30,000 words makes for just a nice little thin book. If it's fewer than 30,000 words, you're getting closer to a novella. If you have a lot of images, maybe you're doing a recipe book or something like that, then that works. But, you know, if it's just straight text, 30,000 words is kind of where a book starts, a thin little book. Jonathan Livingston Seagull or something like that. So who has at least 40,000 words? At least 50. 60. 60 is a great average. 60 is just a nice thick book that you can read on the flight on the way there and the way back, and it keeps you engaged, and it's not too much and it's not too little. Okay, who has more than 60,000 words? All right, how many? 85.
Oh, 3.5.
Okay. All right.
Mine's around 380,000.
Okay.
And last I did my math project, I think I'm about
400,000. Okay. Wow. So like 100,000 words is where a book starts to be a little intimidating, you know, unless you're in law school, then you're used to that. But 100,000 words is kind of a thick book. I've worked on books that are 400,000 words, but depending on your topic and your audience, you know, you're going to want to kind of narrow it down a little bit, or maybe turn it into a few different volumes. So I have. So let's see, who's our winner for the word count? Are you you're? Oh, geez, Sam, you keep winning. All right, Sam.
Been long enough. It's just start coming.
All right, what is your name? Lon. Okay, Lon. Where were we, Lon? And you had how many? Okay, 85,000. 308. Diane. Gosh. Okay, and what did you have? 400 something? And what's your name? Edith. Okay. Okay, I'm asking you this because I'm going to give you prizes. So, where are they? So, Sam, I'm not going to give you the same thing 3 times. That would be unfair. But Sam, Diana, Karen. Wait, who did we decide? Edith is going to win the word count, right? I'm not going to give Sam another prize, though. He's winning everything. So,
I can only read the book once.
so we're going to call you the winner. Okay, so have one of these. Thank you. This is the Indie Author Revolution. And this is a book that we wrote in our office based on our blogs. And so I was one of the editors on it. I wrote a lot of the content. I'm not the author, but it was kind of a takes a village type of project in our office. And it was a really good learning experience for us because we've published lots of other people's books, but this is our book that we published, and it was really challenging because, you know, you can't just take 5 years worth of blogs and bind them and print them and distribute them. I think we probably spent more time editing this than any book we've ever done. And it is challenging, you know, because it's a different format. It's a completely different format. So, so that leads us to, if you do have a blog that you've been working on for a while and you think there could be a book there, how does a book get published? There's basically today, in today's climate, there are 3 ways to get a book published. You can do it yourself. Totally do it yourself, which means you figure out your own editing, proofreading. Gosh, this is so sad. I'm out of breath from like walking up to give that to Diane. I need to exercise. Okay, so you can do it yourself. You can find your own editor, proofreader, book designer. Someone has to design the cover. Maybe you want to design your own cover. You get your own set up the printing. You can print on demand. There are lots of places you can do that. Or you could, do an ebook, and then you distribute it and you market it, and you're like the little chicken who plants the wheat, harvests the wheat, bakes the bread, and eats the bread. That's you. Another way that you can do it is you could hire a company like ours. We're an indie publisher. When I say indie means a lot of different things. So I'm married to an indie filmmaker, and he figures out all the financing and is responsible for everything. And, at the end of the day, his butt is the butt that's on the line if this thing fails or succeeds. So to me, that's indie. An indie band, they figure out how to get their own record produced. Depending on if they hire people or they do it in their own basement, they're responsible for it. And that to me is indie. And as an author, indie means nobody's paying you to publish your book. You're either paying with your equity or you're paying with your money, but no one's giving you money to produce the book. They'll buy your book from you when you're done, if you do it right, but they're not giving you money. So the third way is a royalty publishing deal. So a royalty publishing deal ideally is someone will give you an advance. They'll buy your property from you. They'll buy your rights from you. And they will, take on your project. You may or may not be involved in the decisions made thereafter. You may be heavily involved, or you may just go away and they'll show it to you when it's done. It just depends on the publisher and you and your project. And that's pretty much the dream. That's what everyone would like. And it's a great deal. If you can get it, totally go for it. Go for it. But I did a little research into blogs that got picked up by publishers last year. So, it was really fascinating because I really didn't know what I was going to find. I just, I know the blogs I'm interested in, but I don't know which ones are that a publisher is interested in. And it really comes down to a publisher's interested in a blog that has a lot of followers. That's basically it. If you've got a lot of followers, you don't even have to go looking for a publisher. They're probably going to come and find you. And a lot of followers is a lot. And it's not a huge surprise that the blogs that have the most followers are the ones that get shared and liked and hit on the most. And of all the blogs, and this is kind of a semi-scientific research project that I did this week, but in my semi-scientific results are that of the blogs that were published in 2013, 64% of them were humorous. Not surprising, right? That's the kind of stuff we like, we share, we go back to, it fills the void. 3% were written for children. 3% were inspirational, as in not funny, but you can do it, you're a winner, that kind of stuff. 3% were serious political events, like hardcore journalism, true journalism. 7%, this was kind of encouraging, were pop culture celebrity. So that's nice. That means that people like these blogs, but no one really thinks they deserve to be a book. So that's okay. In 11% of them, New York City was a main character or a main topic, really featured heavily. 14% were cooking, craft, decorating, that kind of stuff, lifestyle things. And, we all love to look at food porn. I do. That's me. 18% exclusively pictures of animals. Animals. So what were they? Let me try and remember the, one was dog shaming. Have you seen dog shaming? I love that because I have a horrible dog. And review of my cat. People go on and they really give an unbiased review of if their cat is any good or not. And this, I love the name of this one. Animals Talking in All Caps, It's Just What It Sounds Like. That's the title of the book. So these are the kinds of things that get a lot of hits and get picked up. And then this one just knocked me out. 25% of the books published in 2013 that were blogs turned into books were written by, for, and exclusively about 20-somethings. So who here is over 20? Who's over 30? So that's most of us aren't 20-somethings, okay? I won't go on. And these blogs all have a rather confessional quality. They're generally self-deprecating. Most of them are written by women, and it's like, oh my God, I had this date and I got so drunk I put my pants. And it's that kind of stuff, super confessional and bawdy. And perhaps that's your blog, and if it is, keep at it. You go, girl. You're going to get a deal, okay? You're going to get a great royalty publishing deal if you're a good writer, and you could get 70,000 followers. The general format of the blogs that get picked up, about 25% of them showcase some kind of artwork that the author does, either photos or cartoons or something like that. 29% are personality driven, as in the author is a main character in this blog would just not succeed without this person's voice. Not so much that they have a good eye for collating things or editing things, but their personality is really part of this blog. 32% rely heavily on reader contributions. dog shaming, you got to send a picture of your dog and the couch that it just ate in order to get on this website or this blog. 42% are writing intensive and 58% are image intensive. So, which is, I knew that it would break down close to that, and I actually thought writing would be lower. So that made me happy because I'm a writer. But I like pictures too. And then interestingly, the gender breakdown is 46% male and 54% female. And I find it interesting because that's kind of how it is in my office too. I'm surprised to see that women have a slight edge at my indie publisher. So that's, I don't know what it means, but I'm a woman and I have daughters, so I'm happy. And did you have a question? You were just, okay, all right, gesturing, okay. So I was looking at a few other blogs like I Ken Has Cheeseburger, because that came out a few years ago. That's the cat and so. And then there are people like Seth Godin, for instance, thought leaders who really do well on multiple platforms. And it's just all one big Seth fest, So he has a book, he has a blog, he speaks, he does this, he does that. He's going to come out with his own yogurt someday. I don't know, something, because he's just a thought leader. And so that there's a fair amount of that too. But what I've noticed though is that really anything funny, visual, or highly of interest to millennials, millennials being the segment with the highest likelihood and aptitude and time on their hands to share things and like things and get invested in things. That's what's going to get picked up. And I'm going to read the title of 4 blogs that were turned into books last year. And so tell me if they have anything in common. 1, Alice in Tumblrland and Other Fairy Tales for a New Generation. 2, Don't Worry, It Gets Worse, 120-something's mostly failed attempts at adulthood. 3, Adulting, How to Become a Grown-Up in 468 Easy-ish Steps. 4, and I love this one, I'm Only Here for the Wi-Fi, A Complete Guide to Reluctant Adulthood. So that was last year. And this affected me a lot because like I said, I'm not a blogger. And I just missed the whole blogging thing because when I was in my 20s, I was full of randy confessions. And I was very prolific. And then I got married and had children, and I literally burned all of my journals because I thought, I don't want kids to know any of this. And so I'm kind of really grateful that I don't have a blog because the internet never forgets. So I'm really grateful, but I also know I missed my chance. Could have been a contender. But so it'll be interesting to see in society what happens. So anyway, so that was last year. So I told you kind of the things that do get picked up by publishers. And I don't have the comprehensive results for 2013, but I do for 2012. And in 2012, 148 bloggers were picked up by publishers the old-fashioned way. They got in advance, they got a good deal, they're going on fabulous tours, it's all good. And that is encouraging, except for there are approximately 152 million blogs. So 148 out of 152 million is not great odds. I did the math, and it's your odds of scoring a royalty deal are 0.0001%. And I rounded that up from 0.00009%, so it'd be less demoralizing. So that's reality. But I'm here to tell you that if you don't have 90,000 18 to 30-year-olds following your blog, that's not a bad thing. In fact, it can be a good thing. In fact, it can mean that it can mean that your book would actually sell to people who buy books who are not 18 to 30-year-olds necessarily. And, you may actually have much better success with a book. And I'm not saying abandon the blog. I have authors come to me all the time. They've got this wonderful manuscript, and then they don't know what to do with it. They write the book, and then And they're like, well, if I build it, they will come, right? No, you've got to get out there and market and hustle, and they don't want to blog, and they don't want to even have a Facebook account, and they don't want to do anything. And so if you're in this room and you have you written 200 words at least every 6 months for 1 year, you're ahead of a lot of authors. So that's good. And if you may be writing a blog that's giving really good, for instance, career advice to middle-aged people, okay? They may or may not find your blog, but they may very likely want to pick up your book and read it. So, if it's not funny cat stuff, don't worry about it. If it is, keep going, because that's lucrative. It really depends. Okay, so there are different kind of blogs. So I like to get a feel of what kind of blogs everyone's working on. So raise your hand if you mostly collate other materials from around the web, like recipes, news stories. You rely heavily on reader contributions, their submissions, and photos of the bulk of your content. You're like a collator. Raise your hand if that's you, which is a good thing to do. People like this. Okay. So if the content is not your own stuff, clearly it's going to be a little bit harder to publish it. So, we can never have, sadly, we can never have too many recipe books or garden books or craft books or things like that. So if you've got a really good collection of something, it could totally be worth putting together in a book. And a lot of these blogs that were published, again, people have to submit their funny pet pictures, and that's how they get turned into books. So, it's worth looking into. The rights are a lot stickier. It's, if you've got something where people have signed some, release form as they publish something on your site, maybe you'll be okay. But it is a little bit trickier, and a blog may be the better place to keep that content. If your blog, if any of your blogs rely heavily on images, other people's images, whatever it is you're doing, like if you write a lovely essay every day and then you go, do a Google search for pictures of chocolate bunnies and put it on there, and that's not your picture of a chocolate bunny, you have to get the rights for that. It's not such a big deal to share it on a blog because that tends to be a good thing, sharing something, because it's usually attributed back to the author and there's a way to trace it back. I will say I was really amazed when this thing that I wrote that went viral. Of course, you always Google search yourself and see how many hits it's gotten. And I was really surprised to see how many people kept my name in there. And it was really just heartening to see how many people really do attribute. They want to be sure that the Star Tribune got the credit and I got the credit. They didn't just cut and paste it and play with it. There was some of that. But it was kind of nice to see like the honor system in place. That was cool. But if you're going to take other people's intellectual property and print it in a book and publish it and sell it for money, you better cover your butt. You need to get the rights for that. So, that's something you'll need to think about. If your blog relies heavily on other people's words, it's a little bit easier. Images are harder than words. The fair use copyright laws make it okay to use a reasonable percentage of someone's writing. So if you're using a small quote within a larger context, and you attribute it properly, it's really not a problem. If you were going to put William Carlos Williams' whole poem, the one about the chickens in the wheelbarrow, that's his whole poem. So what if it's 10 words long? It's his whole poem, and you can't use that without permission. So it really kind of depends on the percentage of the content that you didn't originally create. Okay, so raise your hand if you review something. Book, software, games, film, whatever. If you're a reviewer. What do you review on?
Electronics products, gadgets.
Okay. All right, who else reviews? What do you review, Diana?
Books plus size clothing, various related products to that.
I get so excited when people review books and blogs, because it's like, see, books still matter. There's a lot of blogs about reviewing books. About 4 years ago, I was convinced that, the printed book was just done. Like, it was just done. They're still going strong, and it may go away at some point, but I was at a Publishers Roundtable meeting a few months ago, and we had some school librarians there, and one of them said that their school purchased Kindles, Nooks, for everyone in the school, and they struggled because the kids didn't want to read books on it. The kids want a device to play a game on it or to text or to watch videos or to do something, but they don't want to read a book on a device. They like a book in a book, and they like everything else on this device. So, we're still really on shifting ground, but I'm encouraged. So anyway, so if you review products, a blog may be the better place to do that, especially if it's something that's very, if it's not an evergreen thing. If it's a gadget that's going to be, replaced in a month, then that's a good place for it. But, maybe you put together film reviews and then you've compiled this great list of, the best movies to watch on a third date or something like that. That could be something that has a niche. I say niche. Who says niche? Who says niche? Okay, whatever. There's no right or wrong answer here. I'm just curious. Okay. So raise your hand if you mostly generate your own material, your own essays, prose, cartoons, photos, videos, whatever it is. It's yours. Okay, good for you. Okay, so it makes it a lot easier for you to produce a book out of that if you'd like to. I guess I'd like to know, so if you just think about this, if you wanted to sell your blog, do you think you could conceivably, somewhere in this universe, find someone who could replace you and do the work that you're doing on your blog right now? Or is your voice so integral to this blog that it just absolutely would never work without you? You're such a character in it. Yes, if you think it could sell it. Sam, okay. Sam monetizes, okay. No, if your blog is just gonna crash and burn without you in it. Okay, well that's good. So I have kind of two things for that. So if you could train the right person to pilot your blog, then they could probably publish your book without you, right? So you should get to it before they do, okay? And then if you can't train anyone else to do your blog, if you're the only one who can write this, then what's stopping you from writing a book? Just keep going. All right, raise your hand if you're operating as some kind of a subject matter expert, like you're all things American Girl dolls or Bigfoot sightings or cancer recovery or something like that. It's okay. All right, that's good. This is good. Subject matter experts, very good. I have, about 8 years ago, we had just a bunch of authors come to us. Their kids had like celiac disease or some kind of allergies, and they couldn't find any books at all on this topic. And they had done so much research that it was worth putting it into a book so that other families going through what they were going through would be able to have something, or a children's book. We did a few picture books, and they sold quite well, and they reprinted several times. And so if you're doing something, and there's just a small group of people who are really passionately interested in this, but they're not a large enough group for a large publisher to invest in it, you're in a sweet spot. You are really in a sweet spot, and you should consider publishing it. I've just published this book about horseshoes, and this guy is like the expert. He's the keeper of all the horseshoe contests in America. I don't know why anyone would want to read this, but they love it and they eat it up, and it's just but he has his crowd, and they're very passionate about it. So, if you have a little, our typical author prints 1,000 books. 1,000 books is usually the first print run. And you can make your money back on 1,000 books. You can print 1,000 books, sell them, and not lose your shirt. You don't really start to make much of a profit until you do either your second print run or you sell more than 1,000. But 1,000 is manageable. You're not going to lose your house. You're not going to, if they're stuck in your garage the rest of your life, you can still park your car there, okay? So, if you've got a small crowd that's into you and into your words, then, think about turning it into a book. A big question people have is, why will your existing readers buy a book when they can read the blog for free? Okay, I don't know. Has anyone here ever been to a concert? Any concert at all? Have you ever been to a concert when you already owned the record or the CD or whatever, and you knew what song they were going to sing, and you knew all the words, and they frankly do it better in the studio, typically, right? Okay, these are people who buy books, like everybody, okay? So, and would you go to a restaurant if you already owned the chef's cookbook? Heck yeah, you would. So that's what fans do. That's what fans are. Has anyone ever heard the theory of the 1,000 true fans? Have you? I love this theory. So I think it came out in Wired like 5 years ago or something. And it's very encouraging to me because my husband is a, independent filmmaker, and we're just, it is not a get rich quick or get rich slow scheme, I'm here to tell you today. So, but 1,000 true fans is if you're any kind of artist, and if you can rustle up 1,000 true fans, not just people to like your Facebook posts, but like they will buy your book, buy your t-shirt, buy your video, whatever it is that you're putting out. If they'll buy it and they'll come to your speeches and concerts and so on. If you can rustle up 1,000 of these, generally you can make a living. I think the formula changes based on the art form that you're putting out, because it's a lot more expensive to create a film, feature-length film, than it is to create a chapbook of poetry. But, so it varies, but that's the idea. And where were we? Okay. Man, this is great. I had a good flow, and then I just have a bunch of miscellaneous crap at the end. So I guess what you want to know is how does a blog become a book? How does anything become a book? Well, you start with a manuscript. You have to have a manuscript. And then the way it works for me is we assess it. We get a sense of how much work does this need to turn into something that people will actually pay money for and get through it to the end. So some things just need a bare amount of editing. Editing is always a good thing, but you can kind of edit something to death. There is a saying that I use it for manuscripts, and it originally came from painting, I think, but is that a manuscript is never completed, it's simply abandoned. And that's what I find to be true all the time. You just have to I can't look at it anymore. Coco Chanel, her process when she made dresses was she would work on it until she couldn't look at it anymore, and she never wanted to see it again, and those were her masterpieces. So you start out, we assess how much editing it needs. It may need developmental editing. If you've got 400,000 words and you want to make it into a 40,000 word book, that's going to need some developmental editing, okay? If you have nothing, if you just have an outline, that's going to need some developmental editing. If you've been reviewing gadgets and plus size clothing and you need to figure out what is your message here, that needs some developmental editing. So either do it yourself or get someone to do it, but that's the development. Once you kind of know there's there and you know what it is you're trying to say and who you're trying to reach, then we go into substantive editing, and everything needs at the very least a copy edit. A copy edit is just like the CYA edit. That means you're not libeling anybody and you're using serial commas correctly. Then what we do then is we proofread it, and then we get a designer. The designer's usually involved early on, but the designer is going to work on your cover and your interior. So interior design, it's the kind of thing that you just totally take for granted until you start working on a book, and then you're obsessed with font sizes and margins and serif or sans serif, and is the page number on the top or is it on the bottom in the center, and people get really wacky with this, and is it going to be natural color paper or white, and you can really just totally wig out on these details that you never, ever considered. The things that make the design cost higher if you're publishing a book is if you have a lot of charts and graphs and images, call-outs. A lot of business books will have a little call-out. They'll take a funny little quote or helpful quote from the paragraph and make it really big so you don't skip it, because if you're reading a business book, you're just kind of skimming. So that anything that makes the designer stop and tweak and fiddle adds up to the hours that the designer's putting into it. So that, adds to the cost of that. And then printing and ebook conversion. So you can go straight to ebook. You can print it. If you have, I tell people, if you're coming in with a picture book, don't bother with an ebook. Just don't even bother. It's so expensive. It's just ridiculous. And it's just not there yet. People still want to buy picture books. That's something you want to buy for your niece or your nephew or your kid or whatever, and give it to them. And you don't want to put someone on your lap and read your phone to them, So don't bother. And it's just too expensive to convert it anyway. But if you have a fiction book, and if it's a romance novel, if it's a mystery, if it's a whatever, if it's just a ripping good yarn, you could really just start with an ebook and just go from there. It's really worth it to kind of build up some Amazon reviews and get some momentum going as an ebook, and then invest in a print book. With a business book, I really think you would probably want a printed book. You just do. And what I find with my business authors is they always want a hardcover with a dust jacket, which is really unnecessary, but it's just kind of a badge of honor. So I try and talk them out of it, but that's where they want to go. And then the big one is distribution, right? So you've got this book, you've got 1,000 of these. Who's going to buy these things? Well, guess what? You're bloggers, so you'll be fine. I'm not worried about you. You know how to reach an audience. You know what your audience wants. Your message is road tested. You've had people comment on things. You know what they like and what they don't like and what they're going to pick you apart for, and where you need to fill in the gaps. And if you've got a typo, they're going to tell you, "Oh, you spelled that wrong." You're going to hear it. So you guys are in pretty good shape. But distribution isn't easy by any means, and it's a long, tangled road. And if you're doing it yourself, you could. There's a lot of options out there. What we offer is we are in the same warehouse that every other publisher in the Twin Cities is in, and they get the books into Ingram, Baker and Taylor, Amazon. That's not hard, and Barnes and Noble. So what we do is we open the gate, but we can't get you through the gate. We work with you for marketing and so on. So I've just kind of like devolved into my typical Explore Publishing workshop that I give once a week. So we have time. Who has questions? What can I help you with? Yes?
You might have already covered this, but ISBN numbers.
Yes.
There's all these different prices.
Yes.
I don't know what any of that ever means.
Right.
I'm looking to purchase one.
Uh-huh.
So could you provide that?
So the ISBN is basically like the Social Security number for your book. You have to have one. And Bowker controls all of them. And they give really good deals to publishing companies. So I could buy 1,000 of them for like $100, and you could buy one of them for like $100. It's really not a good deal. But I think if you publish directly through Kindle, they throw in an ISBN number if you publish directly through them. And there are a few places like that. I don't think Lulu does it, but there are a few places where if you publish directly through them, your ISBN number is part of the package. But it is a pain in the butt to get it on your own. So either publish with someone who throws it in, or I don't know. Well, that's it. So do that, or spend a ridiculous amount of money on this stupid thing. But yes. Anything else? Did that help?
Well, I just know that you can get an ISBN for free,
Mm-hmm.
but then it says the publisher is whatever that
Right,
company was.
right.
And then sometimes you can self-publish,
Mhm.
and then you're the publisher, your name.
Yeah.
And then it's like $125.
Okay, I take it back. So here's my recommendation. Because if you publish through them and they own the ISBN, really read the fine print, because that can mean that, if all of a sudden you succeed and you want to go with another publisher or something, it could get sticky. So really read the fine print, and then maybe it's just worth springing $125 to just buy your own and own it free and clear. Yeah.
But you don't want to buy one, you want to buy like a pack of 10, because you need a different ISBN for each edition. So
You do.
Book versus
Mhm.
soft cover versus hardcover,
Mhm.
versus second.
And I think it's a
edition.
little bit cheaper for 10, but it's still a
Yeah,
rotten
little
deal.
cheaper.
Yeah.
It's a rip-off from Bowker, but it's
Yeah.
better than having smash words or
Right.
Amazon be your publisher.
That's true. So you do need a different one for your ebook, and you need a different one for your print book. But if you don't think you're going to do other editions, you could get away with just 2. But I believe it is like you may as well just buy 10. It's the way the deals are. Go for more than one. Yes. Anybody else? Yeah.
So what about writing a book, because it allows you to open up some more speaking opportunities?
Oh,
You
God.
really want to think of, look, I don't want to get into selling a book, frankly.
Mm-hmm.
Without the book, you can't get a larger speaking engagement.
It's kind of magic because you can get speaking engagements when you have a book. It's just a weird deal. So I have people come in all the time and they say, I just want to take my speeches to the next level, and I know if I put this junk together into a book, I'll be able to do that. So it really does help, because when you're trying to get these deals and you say, well, I'm the author of la la la, then like, oh, an author? And people kind of don't really pay attention to how you got to be that author if you printed it at Kinko's or whatever. I mean, there is definitely some quality issues, but for the most part, a book really helps a lot. It really does. And that's like a huge chunk of my authors. And what I'm really seeing lately, which is surprising me, is I am seeing more fiction authors, which, typically that's a smaller segment of because people pay us to publish. And so, for a business author, it's just a no-brainer. It's a business deal. It's the cost of doing business. All right, I have to pay to have this book, and then I'll get more clients, But for fiction authors, it's like, I need to be validated by an acquisitions editor. I need someone to love me and say that my stuff is worthy, and it's not me. I can't tell myself if it's worthy or not, And so I'm finding more and more fiction authors are like, yeah, I'll publish it myself. I'm totally okay with that. And we've had to fight the vanity press label for years, and we just kind of don't anymore. It's just kind of a big mishmash, and people are just like, all right, I'm going to take whatever, I want to get this done. And here's a path, and here's a path, and here's a path, and I'm just going to take whichever path makes the most sense for me, So, but the thing is when you talk about paying to publish, everybody pays to publish. Nobody doesn't pay to publish. You either pay with your rights, you give your rights away. You worked on this. This is your equity. You created this. And you don't have control over it anymore. And if they decide they want to take it out of print and leave it in a warehouse and never sell it to anybody again, you have no control over that. So do you want to pay with your rights, or do you want to pay with your money, or a combination? Maybe you're going to do some of the work and pay someone to do some of the work. So there's no free lunch. There just isn't. You can, definitely a royalty publisher can help you with some things and take it to levels that it would be hard for you to get to on your own, but not necessarily. They really they put their marketing money into the proven performers. So if you've proven that you've got an audience, they're going to keep throwing money at your marketing. And if they've just decided to take a chance on you, they're going to see if you sink or swim. And if you prove that you can rustle up an audience, they'll keep putting money into you. But you don't get to just sit in a turret and write pretty words and have people find you and love you. That just doesn't exist, And as bloggers, you know that. You know that it's work to find an audience. So, any other questions? Yes?
Why are authors choosing independent publishers instead of just going Lulu?
Well, a lot of reasons. Many reasons. It is, why do people pay someone to clean their house, right? There's just some stuff you just don't want to do, or you don't have the time to do it, or you're intimidated by it. There are just so many things in your life that if you just took I could change the oil in my car. I could. But it's worth $20 for me to get someone else to do it because I just don't want to deal with that, So that's basically it. People do come to me, though, because we do have a better distribution setup. We have a pretty good track record. I like to say we kind of save authors from themselves. Lulu's not going to tell you if you suck. I will. I'll say, dude, you need to cut 20,000 words out of this book or no one's ever going to buy it, So I guess that's part of it, kind of the tough love part. Yeah.
Does it make a difference in terms of making money when you do e-books or print books, or do you have to do both?
It just really depends on your subject and your audience. I will say, the great thing about an ebook is there's no warehouse, there's no shipping, there's no printing, right? So it just seems like you're just printing money. But, that thought has occurred to about 40 gazillion other people. So how does your book stand out from the pack as an ebook? How do you get known, Yeah.
I just noticed that so many of the professors at the University of Minnesota now that are working in technology or education and technology, they're not even bothering to have a hard print of their
Oh, yeah.
book because it's got to be updated every 2 years.
Right.
2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think people really care if it's just an ebook.
Well, yes and no, it depends on the book. And again, a book like that. So we did a book for the Thunderbird School of Global Management. And it's a textbook for MBAs. And they wanted a textbook and they wanted an ebook. And so I said, okay, so the rule of thumb when you're pricing an ebook is it's usually about half the price of the textbook because it's just a random formula, but that's kind of what the industry standard is right now. And so they were selling their textbook for $85, and so they're selling their ebook for, I think, $80 because because these people have to buy this book. So, for them, I think once education gets a hold of this, my kids are in Minneapolis public schools, and at the conferences in the beginning of the year, we were told that we are no longer using textbooks. Your kid needs an iPad, and, that's public schools. So for sure, that's the direction it's going. And so but every day I feel like we're just going to close because no one's going to print books anymore. And people just keep coming in, and people keep reading and wanting books. So I don't know. I just think there's just more content. There's more readers. There's just more avenues. There's more options. I want to read this on the beach, and I want to read my Kindle on the plane, and it just really depends, you know. Any other questions? Yeah.
What about if you have like a co-author or you have multiple people?
Uh-huh.
Is there any way to like not give him some time and that's as you go through the process, splitting it up?
I work with that a lot. You know, if you were picked up by a royalty publisher, they'd have some, they'd put an agreement together. I've never had to worry about a co-author. What I have had to deal with is an illustrator, splitting that up. And for that, we just do a work for hire agreement, and one person is in charge of it and the other isn't. Otherwise, the people who have worked together, you have to kind of get your own agreement together if you're going to do anything independently. Figure it out, find some whatever agreement, download something somewhere. But, you know, it's just like doing a group project in high school where like the smart nerdy kid does all the work and then the other kid goes and plays basketball or whatever. You know, you'll be resentful if you're the one doing all the work and you have to split it 50-50. So put something in writing. Sam's a lawyer. Ask him. He'll help you.
Or I'll make something up.
But, you know, expectations are resentments waiting to happen. So get your expectations figured out early on, I would say. And I've seen a few partnerships get kind of ugly, but for the most part, people just love being able to call themselves an author. They love reading books aloud to school children or whatever. It really just kind of meets a passion that they've got. So, but yeah, figure it out. Make an agreement up front. Yes. Anything else? Are we done? Is it? Oh, we are. Right? It ends at. Okay. Cool.